Hi, everybody. We're so glad to be here with you today for our Sunday school lesson. Aren't you glad to be here today?
Yeah.
I know. We're so glad we're back here with you. So today we have a special story we're going to listen to, and we're going to do a special craft about too. So the story we have today is called The Boy at the Temple. Do you know what a temple is?
It's like a place where they worship God.
Ooh, where do we go to worship God?
Church.
At the church. And so sometimes back then they didn't call it church, right? They called it their temple. And so this story today is going to be about Jesus, but he's not a baby anymore. Today he's going to be about 12 years old. That's funny. Last week, didn't we just say baby Jesus was like 40 days old, and now he's 12 years old? Whew, he just like jumped through time, didn't he? He was so fast. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. So today, this story is about Jesus when he's 12 years old. And he's with his mom and dad, who were
Mary and Joseph.
And they were going on a special trip. They were going all the way from their home in Nazareth, and they were going to Jerusalem because they were going to celebrate a special festival called Passover. And when they went to Passover, they all went to the temple. And so Jesus, he went to the temple with them, but he did a different decision than what the rest of the family did. So we're going to learn about that today in our story. But there's one thing I want to show you before we start, because this is kind of a clue to our story today. What is this special book?
It's my ultimate puzzle challenge.
Puzzle
for
challenge.
Like, trips.
Is it easy to solve the puzzles?
Oh, no.
Sometimes it's hard. And so some of these, I know, you have like some special mazes in here. You have all sorts of things. And you have different things. And sometimes you have to use your brain to think about what you're going to do, right? Because that's important when you're solving some of those special puzzles. Well, have you ever played the game hide and seek before?
Yes.
What do you do when you play hide and seek?
You try to hide and the other person will try to find you.
Oh, I think that's kind of what Jesus did, except he wasn't really trying to hide or be found. So in the story today, we're going to think about how did Mary and Joseph, how did they solve their problem? How did they find him? Because Jesus was lost for a little bit.
Or solve the puzzle.
And that would be scary if Jesus was lost. If you were lost, would I be scared?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I would be. And so that's kind of in our story today. Mary and Joseph are going to be looking for Jesus, and he is going to be right where he thinks he's supposed to be. So let's see what that is. Are you ready? Here's our story called The Boy at the Temple, and this comes from the book of Luke in the New Testament, and it's from chapter 2, verses 41 through 52. Okay, here we go. The Boy at the Temple. Every year, Jesus' family traveled from their home in Nazareth to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of Passover. Jesus loved going to the festival. He loved the crowds of people. He loved the noise and the bustle of activity. And he loved spending time in the temple. What is the temple again?
Like a church.
Okay. Oh, so I see all the people coming. And there were so many crowds. Do you have to stay close to your parents if you're in a crowd like that?
Yes.
Phew. Okay. One year, when Jesus was 12, the festival began just like any other. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus enjoyed the sights, the sounds, and activities of the festival together. When the festival was over, Mary and Joseph joined others from Nazareth for the long walk home. But when the group stopped to camp at the end of the first day, Mary and Joseph could not find Jesus anywhere. Would that make you worried if you were a part of that family?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so let's look at this picture. Here's Mary and Joseph, and I wonder if this is Jesus. Do you think that's him right there?
Yes,
I think so too. He looks like he's so excited, right? And they're heading with all their different animals, and they're going to this special festival. Do you remember what it was called?
Passover.
Passover. They were going to celebrate with all the other people. Okay, you ready? Everyone thought that he had been walking with someone else in the group. Jesus, yelled his parents. What did they say?
Jesus, where are you?
I bet they said that over and over, didn't they? Mary and Joseph were frantic. They quickly walked back to Jerusalem looking for him. They searched the city high and low for 3 whole days until they found Jesus in the temple. How many days did they search?
3 whole days.
That's a really long time for someone to be lost. Do you think Mary and Joseph were really worried?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if Jesus was worried. I'm not sure.
So.
I don't think so either. Let's see what happens. Mary and Joseph were surprised at what they saw. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that sentence. They searched the city high and low for 3 whole days until they found Jesus in the temple. I forgot that last part. Mary and Joseph were surprised at what they saw. Jesus was in the temple talking with teachers more than twice his age. Oh, here you can see. Here he is. He was just a boy, but he could talk about God with a room full of grown-ups. The teachers in the temple were impressed with what Jesus knew. Mary and Joseph were proud, but they were still a bit angry with Jesus. Jesus, why weren't you with us? We've been looking all over for you, Mary and Joseph exclaimed. And Jesus replied, why were you looking for me? Didn't you understand that I was in my Father's house? Mary and Joseph didn't understand, but with that, they gathered their belongings and began the long walk back home. So where did they find Jesus?
In the temple.
And what was he doing there?
He was talking to teachers about God.
That's right. He wanted to learn more about God and about the Bible. I bet those were good teachers to learn from, right?
Yes.
But he'd been missing for how many days?
3
3
whole days.
That's a long time. And so when we think about that story, like when I showed you the puzzle book, we were thinking Mary and Joseph really had to use their brain to figure out where was Jesus.
Like
Where
to
was
figure
he?
out a puzzle.
You're right, the same kind of thing. And Jesus wasn't really like trying to be disobedient. He wasn't not following the rules on purpose. He thought he was where he was supposed to be. And where was that?
His Father's house.
Why did they call it? Why do you think he called it his Father's house?
Because his Father is God.
Oh, so he thought, of course I'm going to be there. Where else would I go, right?
Yeah.
So I thought today for our craft, let's make a craft about Jesus' Father's house. Will that work? Okay, let's show them what we need.
So you need paper. It doesn't matter what color. An envelope,
Oh, perfect.
glue stick, and a few popsicle sticks.
And then one last thing in your hand.
And a marker.
It doesn't matter what color.
Not
No.
really.
Never. It never matters. So the first step, what we're going to do is we're going to take this envelope and we're going to open it just like this. We're going to put the flap up. And then, Lincoln, what I'm going to ask you to do is put some glue on the back of the envelope. Can you do
Right
that for me?
here?
Yep, all over the whole thing real quick.
Right here.
All over. Yep. All over the whole thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just put a big X on there and maybe a little bit at the top. You can show our friends what your glue looks like. Yep, just like that. Perfect. Okay, let's show them. Here is our special envelope with glue on it. And we're going to hurry and we're going to stick it down right in the middle of our paper. Okay, do you want to show them what it looks like?
Yep.
Okay, as soon as we have it stuck down, and always if the glue doesn't stick, you can always use tape. Because sometimes the glue, it takes a little bit extra. And sometimes when we put it on, we like to put it on and then count for a minute or count to like 20 maybe. Would that work? And then hopefully it will have stuck by then. Okay, let's show them what our envelope looks like now on our paper. Oh, it's an envelope on a paper. But you know what that reminds me of? It looks kind of like a house, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So if I think of this, and I think of this as my house, this could be like my roof, right? What is at the top of a church normally? What do we
A
see?
cross
A
or a-
cross.
It looks like a
Ooh.
T.
That's true. It does look like a T, but there's a cross sometimes at the top. And then what do we walk in through?
A door.
A door. So let's add some doors and maybe a cross to the top. Oh, let's see what they look like when Lincoln is adding this on there. So we're going to make our envelope look like a church. But back then they didn't call it a church. Remember, what did they call it back then?
They called it a temple.
The temple. So we're going to go ahead and pretend like this is the temple where Jesus was. So let's see. Do you have your cross almost done? Perfect. Well, he's adding it on there nice and neat. You'll see it in just a moment. Here it comes. Are you ready? Okay. Here is our temple. What did Jesus call this?
His Father's
His
house.
Father's house. Well, inside the temple, what was, like, who was there?
The teachers
And
and
who else came? Who was
Jesus.
visiting? That's right, Jesus was there. Well, so now what we can do is we can take our craft sticks and we can make these into people. Are you ready? So what do you think we need to add to that, Lincoln?
maybe like eyes,
Okay.
a nose, a mouth, and some hair.
Okay, perfect. Let's get those on there. Now, we know that in this story, Jesus was at the temple and he wasn't there by himself. He wasn't just on his own. So he was there with the teachers. So you can make as many people as you want to go inside your temple. So here we have like 3 or 4 craft sticks. You could have one for Jesus, one for a teacher, and another. You could also put Mary and Joseph there too if you want, in case they want to be there with their son for part of the time. Now, as soon as we have our person, who is this going to be? Do you think?
Jesus.
Jesus, here he is. He has his smile. He looks happy, doesn't he? And he has his shirt on. So now we can open up our envelope a little bit, since we have it there, and he can go right inside the temple. Now, we could also add some other people. So look, here we have another person that can join Jesus. Maybe that would be a teacher, right? And we could
Yes.
always show that they're a little older if we want to add some gray hair or some dark hair, and they can all have different clothes on if you want, right? Now, here they are, hanging out in the temple. What do you think they're talking about?
Like God.
I bet so. And the Bible? And all, well, I guess they don't have the Bible written yet, but he was learning all about it, wasn't he? Or maybe actually there was part of the Bible that was written. So that would be amazing for him to go and learn all of the teachings. Don't you think?
Yes.
That would be amazing. So now, I think that we should go and we should add some more people to our temple. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So please remember this story. Remembering Jesus went to the temple. Mary and Joseph didn't know where to find him, but he knew right where he was. He was not lost. He knew he was in his Father's house. So please enjoy going to make your own temple and showing the story of Jesus going to the temple and being at his Father's house. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.
Hi, how are you? Good. Well, today we're going to look at a story in the book of Luke, and it's chapter 2, verses 41 to 52. And guess what happens in it?
You may have already heard it. Jesus gets in trouble. Do we think of Jesus making bad choices and
Doing bad things?
let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to start in my Bible.
Okay, with verse 41. Every year,
His parents, who do you think his is? Jesus's. So Mary and Joseph, right?
Mary's his mom, and Joseph is the man that raised him, right? Every year, his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. So that means every year, Jesus, and not just Mary and Joseph, but all of his family, they all traveled together. And did they get in the car or get in an airplane? Mm-mm. Remember, they traveled slow walking. So they went to a town kind of far away called Jerusalem. It was a big town. And they went there each year for the
Feast of the Passover. So this story tells us what
happened the year that Jesus was 12. So when he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom, the tradition of their family.
After the feast was over,
What do you think they did?
they went home, right?
Right? That's what they did every year. They all traveled home together, his whole family.
After the feast was over,
While his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind.
in Jerusalem. Would your parents ever get in the car and leave
Leave you at your grandparents' house?
if you guys go out to dinner?
Would your parents ever leave you at the restaurant? No, we don't do that, right? Well, how did Jesus stay there?
Oh,
This tells us why. So while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. So Mary and Joseph didn't realize he wasn't with them. So have you guys ever seen the movie Home Alone? It's about Christmas time. Well, it's a story of a boy, and a lot of his family comes into town, and they're all staying in the house, and they're staying in different bedrooms in different places, and they're running late, and they have to get to the airport, and they have to get these big vans and things. And
someone in the family was supposed to count.
all the kids' heads. And she thought she had them all right, but there was a neighbor boy that came over. Anyway,
They get on an airplane and they're
flying away, and the little boy wakes up at home alone. So if you've seen
Home Alone, you know what I'm
talking about. If not, maybe your parents will let you watch it. I don't know. But in this instance, the whole group's traveling together, so they just
assumed Jesus was doing what was right. Now, something that was interesting though, I'm wondering,
since
Mary and Joseph didn't have Jesus right next
to him holding his arm, I wonder if he usually made good choices.
and they thought they could
Trust him to do what he was supposed to do.
maybe, or maybe
They just thought that he was traveling with his cousins or somebody or something like that, and they just assumed it was safe and everything was okay. Do you remember from the story how long they traveled till they realized, uh-oh, where is he? Let me find it, okay? let's see. Thinking
He was in their company.
company, so they thought Jesus was with him, they traveled for a day, for one whole day. Got a cough, sorry. Excuse me. Okay, so then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. But I think there's more to that.
Have you ever had it happen
Where they thought you were in one room in the house or something and you were somewhere else, and they came in like, where are you? And started calling your name really loud, or they thought you were in one part of the backyard but you come in the house. Have you had that happen? Well, I have to tell you, because I'm a mom. My girls are older now. They're, oh my gosh, almost 18 and 16. It's kind of hard to believe. Anyway, every once in a while when I couldn't find them where I thought they were, my heart would start racing and I'd get scared. So sometimes when moms and dads kind of seem like
they're really angry?
because you're not where you said you were or where they thought you were, they're really scared. And I bet you Mary and Joseph were scared. So they looked all amongst their friends, all amongst their family, all the normal spots they would expect to find Jesus. And why wouldn't they expect him to be there? He'd done it all the previous years. He's always followed the rules, right?
I bet you they were terrified. So then they decided to stop.
Heading home to Nazareth and go back to Jerusalem. Did they find him right away? Let's find out.
Okay.
After
3 days. As a parent, I can't.
Can't imagine that. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, in the courts there, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. So hang on a sec. First of all, they found him and he was safe. That's great.
Now, I don't know about you.
But
If I was to go
someplace where there were adults, and I wasn't yet an adult, I'm still a teenager, or kind of young, I don't think I'd just walk up to the teachers and sit down and start talking to them. Wouldn't you kind of stand back and listen and be like, maybe have a question? So I'm wondering, over those 3 days, somehow Jesus felt comfortable enough to go sit, and they let him. And listen to this.
listening to them and
Asking them questions. So the teachers were listening to Jesus and talking with him and listening to his thoughts and opinions.
everyone who
Heard him. Everyone who heard Jesus was amazed at his understanding and his answers. So he was asking them questions and he was answering their questions. He was engaged in dialogue with adults, with priests.
with teachers, people that were educated. And remember,
Do you remember what Jesus was growing up to do? Now, back then in Bible times, you didn't go to college like we do now or get jobs. Usually whatever your family did, whatever your father did, is a skill that you learned. So
do you guys know what Joseph did?
he was a carpenter. So Jesus
Was learning those
skills, right?
He wasn't learning to
Be a priest or a teacher. He wasn't having that kind of education. Yet he knew these things and
he could talk with
them. Who do you think gave him all that knowledge?
I bet you it was God, right? Okay, let's see what happens next.
When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, what do you think she said? What would you say? Let's find out.
Son,
Why have you treated us like this? Why did you disobey? Why weren't you where you were supposed to be? Why did you scare us, right? Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you.
what do you think Jesus said? What would you say? Sorry?
Or what do you think?
Jesus said, why were you searching?
Searching for me. Well, why wouldn't his mom and dad be looking for him? He wasn't with them, right? Jesus seems surprised by this. Why were you searching for me? He asked. Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Now hang on a second. I had to be in my Father's house.
What does that mean? What do you think it means? I wonder.
Now Joseph is the man that raised Jesus, right? Kind of like his adopted father. Who's Jesus' father? God, right?
When in Jewish times they believed that God lived in part of the temple. That was the holiest of holies.
Right? So Jesus says, didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? So the church, the temple would be like God's house there. So that's where Jesus was.
But they didn't understand,
And what he was saying to them. So Mary and Joseph didn't understand
right? They just knew.
that their son wasn't with them. They'd been looking for him for 4 days at least. And they found him safe and sound and sitting amongst adults having a discussion. I don't think they were probably very happy. What do you think? I'm sure they were relieved to find him, but felt like they couldn't trust him maybe. I don't know. So Jesus is saying that he's in his Father's house, and
Mary and Joseph were heading
back to Nazareth. What do you think happened?
Then he went down
To Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. So,
Jesus went home with Mary and Joseph.
and he followed the rules of the house. Does your house have certain rules? Maybe when you're allowed to
Be on the computer or with games, or when you have to go to
bed, or when you have to wake up, or when you have to do homework, right? There's always rules.
So Jesus followed the rules of
Mary and Joseph's house. But
his mother treasured
all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. So Jesus kept growing, because there we know he was 12. Do you guys remember how old he was, or when he started his ministry and brought the disciples in? Do you know how old he was? 33. So there's still quite a few years between this story and when he starts his teaching. So we know he's a lot of time to grow in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and with men.
So what did you learn? I think everybody is a good person, and I think
Sometimes we make bad choices. Doesn't make you a bad person, right? Next time, make a better choice.
so. Here we know that Jesus
Jesus was very comfortable.
comfortable sitting with the priests and the teachers of the day and talking. But he wasn't where he needed to be. He needed to be back in Nazareth.
With Mary and Joseph, they keep growing and keep learning. And that's what he did. Maybe that was God's plan.
Wonder what God's plan is for you and for me. Guess we'll find out. But let's pray.
Okay? God, thank you for this week. Thank you
For again showing us that you love us, that you love even when we make
bad choices, that sometimes what seems okay to us may not be okay to others. Please let us always try to think of others' feelings.
try to be helpful and kind.
People.
Please keep us safe and keep us learning and keep
Us challenged
with new and exciting things. We hope to gather again next week.
in your name.
Amen. All right, guys.
See you next week. Bye.